Pardon? Six Sigma. Well, Six Sigma is a tool, but we're getting there. Okay. So they're saying the philosophy in this case of supplier selection should be that I will not accept any defect. The philosophy within the company also will say that I will not make any product with a defect. Okay. So is it true that okay, Japanese make totally defect-free product? That's not what we are saying. We are talking about the striving, the mentality. We are shifting from a good enough quality to say that it has got to be zero defect. Okay. So that's the comparison between good enough quality and the zero defect one. That was previous, and now most companies are trying to strive towards zero defect. The second part of total quality management is that quality is the responsibility of every individual in the organization. So historically what used to happen is that there will be a quality, I think it still exists in many companies, there will be a quality department. Okay, if there is a problem, a design defect, a manufacturing defect, packaging defect and all that, what will they say? We'll send it to the QA packing department, total quality department and all that, right? So Japanese again came and said that no, this is wrong. Every individual should be interested in building good quality into the product, early building of the quality into the product, not too late. While you make it, if you are responsible to do one intermediate step, step number 3 in a 10-step process, you better make sure that you don't pass on bad quality. Yeah, using TPS and things like that. Okay. Now, employee involvement. We talked about that, right? Employees should also be involved in this, and it gets to things like training. You want to train the employees in the use of quality tools in problem solving, right? Then continuous improvement. You remember I gave you the example of as is and then what it should be. That's exactly continuous improvement. What is the process as is and what should it be? So you should always be in the process of improving your targets. So on quality, today you are 92%, tomorrow you want to get to 96, then you want to get to 98. You're never going to be satisfied and say this is good enough. Same thing with cost. You keep chipping away. Can I make it into a lower total cost and so on. Another thing which was part of TQM, along with these 3 philosophies about zero defect, total involvement and continuous improvement, that all of these things were done through the tool conduit of a tool. Okay, I'm not just saying that just for the fluff that okay, let us continuously improve, but I'm saying what tools will you use to continuously, right? So we have typical problems. Many of you may know some of that. Design of experiments. You've heard of design of experiments. Failure mode effects analysis, FMEA, right? All these would be examples of or simple cause effect diagrams, systems diagrams. All of these, your fishbone diagrams. All of these would be examples of tools, right? So they showed them the tools and made them make decisions based on data. Data driven science. Okay. Again, I'm not saying these tools only came from Japan, but they had a systematic way of problem solving. The TPS, the Toyota Production System, right? So there would be some people who are expert problem solvers, and their job was to train the others and all. Okay, so that everybody got trained. Okay. So the last thing I want, and this is where I was leading to, because I think you see the same parallel to where we are heading in environmental science, is that there was a notion that if I want to build high quality in the products, then I have to experience higher costs. Okay, so the Japanese said if you do it right the first time, your costs will not go up. So they told us about this philosophy, saying that higher quality doesn't mean higher cost. This principle is called the cost of quality. Okay, and it's still being experienced in the world today. Walmart's example is interesting. When Chinese suppliers wanted to get Walmart's account, they lowball the price, which is very standard of what they do. Right? They keep the prices low so that we can get the account. When it came to contract renewal, the Chinese supplier says, "I want a price increase." And then Walmart said, no, wait a minute, it's not a price increase. We want you to decrease your price. We paid you $1 last year. I want you to give it to me in 98 cents, not $1.05. Okay. So anyway, does this you understand this point that higher quality doesn't necessarily mean higher cost, right? Okay. The second thing which happened in the same time frame like PQM is called the lean movement. Okay. Many of you were telling me about Six Sigma and all that, right? Lean. You've heard of lean. Because the lean movement was a much more higher principle than lean management. Because you could use, to answer your question, you can use it in lean manufacturing, you can use it in lean design, you can use it in lean logistics and all that. So that, but I was trying to tell you what I meant by lean movement was why companies were suddenly getting on the bandwagon of lean. Why they were saying that, oh, I need to understand lean. Okay, just like how they were getting into this bandwagon of TQM. Okay, so what happened? Let's see if we can see some. I mentioned to you that I will explain this, right? Techniques to become lean. The same thing is true for the company. Okay, why do we become fat? There's some wasteful activity going on over there. You're eating too much. You have sedentary jobs, or maybe you're not exercising enough, right? So you can find the root cause of why you're not lean, right? Okay, I give you some examples. This is not a comprehensive example, but one of the what do you say, a template of what could be considered waste is waste of overproduction. So when there's overproduction, what happens? You have higher inventories, right? You don't sell, so you have higher inventory, right? Excessive transportation, not only between a supplier and a customer, but also even within a manufacturing unit or a distribution unit. If you find that cartons are going all over the place before it comes to where it needs to go, it's excessive transportation, right? Now, many of your engineers, you remember we had this moment on ergonomics, motion studies, time and motion studies. You remember time and motion studies? That is excessive movement, but at the individual level, right? Actually, companies pay a lot of money to investigate this. I'll give you one. I had the opportunity to look at UPS, and in UPS they like collect data like anything. So once you, I mean, maybe Flipkart will also benefit from this. When you look at the driver, and he is on his route, and then he comes to a stop, and he's going to make a drop of the shipment at the customer, they measure everything, including at the micro level. How many steps does he take to come down from the van? How many steps? Even this is interesting. If this was like maybe 15 feet, they even know how long he takes to get to. They measure all of it. So do you take large steps, or you can't take too large steps because you'll fall. So you take short steps which are, so they optimize everything. And even when you come back, it has a very nice little customer service angle. They are still very polite. They come and say very quickly, say a very pleasant word, and then they're gone because they're being measured. Okay, so excessive movement, excessive transportation, and lead times. That means when there is too much of lead times going on. Pardon me? More production time, yeah. And storage, okay. What does the storage tell you? Storage tells you that it is one step away from being sold, right? If it is sold, you have nothing to store, right? You produce something, and the best scenario would be, this is like typical in services, which I'll come to in a minute. I produce something and the customer comes and takes it and goes. Then there is no need for storage. Right? But service is like that, right? You produce a service and it is consumed immediately. Okay? So they're trying to get to that ideal where you have very little storage. Okay? Overproducing, too much transportation, lead time is a symptom of some inefficiencies or waste, storage, and excessive movements from an individual point of view. Okay? So that are some examples, not an exhaustive set of examples. So what companies are doing is that they create, you were telling me Six Sigma, there's usually the conduit of that is a project. So they'll define a project and they will do, that will become a focus of becoming lean. Then they take the next project and then they take the next project. Okay? So a Six Sigma project means there's a near perfect execution of the process. There is very little of the waste. Okay? So the tools which make this happen is something which I explained to you in the beginning of the presentation. Is things like value stream mapping, finding out how the process works. It's a graphical description of how an activity is taking place, and then using, that is the ASIS process, and using tools to improve that, problem solving tools. Okay? And at this, I think I mentioned to you, at the advanced level, at the individual level, if you're an advanced problem solver in lean, just like the equivalent in martial arts like karate and taekwondo, you're given a black belt certification. Okay? It means advanced problem solving. All right. Now, this is where I wanted to get to. Okay? So we saw TQM, we saw lean, and now we are going to the sustainability moment, and it gets down to the question saying, does it pay to be green? Just like how we say, does it pay to have higher quality, or does it pay to be lean, right? If all my competitors are polluters, right? So historically that was a debate. I'm sure that still works today too. Okay. A related question is, because there's a profit motive in the polluters question, right? Because by polluting and getting away with it, I can have a much higher profit, right? So the question is bottom line profits the main objective, right? Or should we be thinking about other things? So you've heard of triple bottom line, right? People, planet, profits. Okay? People, planet, profits. Of these three, the primary focus has been on profits. And what's an example of the impact on the planet? Pardon me? Environmental deterioration or climate control, right? Global warming. Okay? Okay, so we finished an example of profits, finished one example of the, we are left with people, right? What about the example of people? People, profit, and planet. We finished planet, we finished profit. People. Pardon me? Health issues. Very good. Health issues. Employee health issues, whether you take care of your employees, don't put them into harmful conditions and all that, right? Okay. So, does it pay to be green? Are polluters better off than the non-polluters? Is bottom line the main objective? The obviously answer is no. And then, for a lot of these things to happen, the public and private partnership needs to take place. Tell me an example of this. When is there a conflict between public companies and private companies? Pardon? Sterlite factory. Can you expand on that? I see. That's a very good example. So many times it involves the government, so if the government has much more, let's say there's so much of pollution going on that the government comes and says we need to tighten the standards. So the immediate reaction from the companies will be no, our costs will go up, right? So they need to sit down, and if the government says zero defect, there should be no pollution at all. It may be difficult to do very quickly. So they'll sit down and say, okay, let's try to arrive at an intermediate target, and that could be an example for public-private partnership in setting standards. Okay. Then if you look at the road infrastructure, right, tolls, the US individuals are paying the tolls, and then the government is levying the taxes, although the infrastructure is not improving at all. So you see that there are two units which need to work in tandem for it to work, right? So there are a lot of examples of public private partnerships which take place to have an improved model. That's what I was trying to get at, to improve on the sustainability part of it. Now, this is vital for you to know. This is not so much for the project, but also for your personal development as a career and how you look at things. If you want to change anything, especially bottom of the pyramid or the rural segment and so on, innovation is key. Examples today over here is somebody thinking out of the box. What is a better way to solve this problem? Okay, innovation is vital. So it is important for you to start thinking about how do I build my innovative skills, creative skills, right? Second thing, I'm not giving you just like what is needed. I'm also giving you a conduit of doing it, which is a structure of doing it, and I'm convinced entrepreneurship is the structure. So if you understand these two things, that if you want to make a change, so you can put it in a mathematical equation, change equal to innovation plus entrepreneurship. Okay, and it's not to say that one does not exist with the other. I'm saying one is a structure. That if you say, well, I'm pretty innovative, I want to make a change, how do I go about it? I can do it within a company over there, and I've done that in my 7 or 8 years or in India, but it's very, very frustrating because change management is difficult. They are not receptive to new ideas and so on, right? So if you're frustrated with that, you start your own company. So many of the leading edge change movements which happened in sustainability came with that entrepreneurship idea. Okay? A long-term view versus a short-term view. Many of the problems in sustainability come because people take shortcuts. Okay. Last thing is the social good. Doing something for the benefit of the social good. Okay. So, do you have any questions on what we covered so far today in the morning session? Access to the discussion questions. Both of them are on the Google Drive part of it, and we will be starting with the first case tomorrow, which is called harvest. Okay. So, no questions for me? Yes. That's a very good question. That's a constant debate which comes up, and it affects things like Kyoto Protocol and all that. If it comes, when you look at energy indicators, US is the highest energy. See, I mean, you're making a valid point. This has been shared as a concern of many social activist groups and so on. The challenge when you talk about country to country issues on sustainability are far more complex than when we talk about at the firm level or the supply chain level, and pointing fingers saying that, okay, you polluted, so I'll also pollute, or what is the consequence that which is the question we're raising, right? Are polluters better off than the non-polluters? At the economy level, I don't think there's any consequence, right? I know, but you can make an argument, what if they say they're too bad? So that's what I think. I don't know about the pollution part of it, but you're right about the energy per capita. That there is always this argument saying that US is the highest energy per capita. So how can you go around and preach to the others, on the sustainability? It's a very hard philosophical debate to settle. But I have heard that argument about this, and that is always a constant friction between the developed and the developing countries. For us, in fact, if I want to answer that response in a different way, which I've been reading, by the way, in a book that I will share with you, it's that many of the developed countries are now looking at very innovative solutions coming from developing countries. So, for instance, I was reading about a stove which was made in, we have several innovations here as well, a stove made in Guatemala or something, which uses very little energy and maintains good temperature and so on. So if we cannot change the world in that way, where the use of power or the might dictates the will or the intentions of the developing, go back to innovation, right? So if somebody else will not solve our problems, we have to solve the problems. And we do it in a affordable way. We do it in a very creative way, you know. And this book is so interesting because the book makes it, it's called Cradle to Cradle, by the way. And because we are discussing Herman Miller in the case, it's very much pertinent to this book because Herman Miller is also mentioned in the case. Okay, and I will be leaving a copy of that book here before I leave, the Cradle to Cradle. So what is interesting is they are saying that the Western country architects and designers have neglected to see what are local creative innovations in product designs. So he's got several of such things. The Guatemala thing is something which I read later on, but there's many such innovations where, you know, if you go down to the roots of certain cultures, what the Amazon Valley people did, the Brazilian, the Incas did, or what some of the indigenous people did. I was reading one example which comes to mind is a desert in Africa where they've used, where the temperatures go to 50 plus and all that, where they've used the goat hair, you know, in the huts to keep the temperature down, you know. So that's such a creative innovation, and this Western designer saw that, and he said, no, there's a lot of applications of this. So he's trying to say, use indigenous sources for local customized solutions. Fair enough? Anything else? Well, your comment is well taken, but if you look at the Walmart document I sent to you, you know, you will see, and it serves also as an audit. So what you can do is, if companies are not doing what Walmart is doing, and obviously one would be because of lack of resources, cost, and all that, they have to start thinking of trade-offs. If I can't do 10 out of that, I have to think about what's most important to me, and think, how do I do those 3? Okay. So in your example, it's hard to think of a company which can sacrifice quality. Okay, it will not exist then. Okay, they may be sacrificing environmental measures. Some of them are good maybe on the green measures, and not so good on CSR, right? Because it may not be a priority, right? That's why I think in that Steve Howard's thing, he talks about, you know, do things which are based on what you think is your priority. That's the same thing. There are multiple examples of IKEA which said that this is a priority for us. We cannot see factories where there is child labor. When you look at nobody looks at this. Okay, when you look at noise pollution in cities, the WHO has come up with the top 5 noisiest cities. At least 2, if I don't know if it is 3, are in India. We don't think about that. And in my own personal example, when I come to India, I find, oh, suddenly the noise level is high. When I go back to the US, I find everything is so quiet. You know, so we're kind of used to this, you know. This is happening at a city level. You can go and see maybe you're doing it in your project. You can go, that will be an excellent example of a project, by the way. You go and look at a factory and see if they're monitoring noise. Okay? In a distribution center, are they monitoring noise? Because it's the least thought of thing. We think about air, okay, we think of water, we think about energy. We don't think about noise at all, right? And it can affect health of the worker, health and safety of the worker, right? You can get permanent, you know, ear damage and all that, right? So, good questions, very good questions. Anything else for the GIAN course? So those of you who join later on, send an email to Professor, and he will give you the. Now once you join, actually you can click on that link. When you click on that link, those cases are downloadable. Okay, so you will start downloading those cases. There's a free case in this, which I put on this group called the Toyota case. Later on, we are going to be discussing Toyota case. Okay, so the first order of business is to make sure that you have all the cases. Okay, so when you see there's a course outline, there's a course outline one right on top, next one. The course outline tells us the sequence of things we'll be doing starting from tomorrow. Harvest case, you know, every day we'll have one case. Okay, so you want to look at that course outline and make sure that you have access to that case. Otherwise, you won't be able to read. Okay, So these are the two things. People who haven't joined need to join this, and this is where we will be keeping all our documents. Okay, and I also put one, yeah, this one, this course outline. Everything will have one case attached to it. Okay, and I'll continuously be putting some documents over here. All right, is that clear? Okay, I want to show you one thing. Maybe this may be of help. Let me show you one presentation. For you to kind of help out in your projects. Okay. I gave you a quick overview of value stream mapping, and maybe you're still a little puzzled. So let me show you some of the operational details of that. Okay. So first thing is, why do we do value stream mapping? We do value stream mapping because we want to increase the value from the customer's perspective. Okay. We want what the customer wants. For example, you want to reduce the time from receiving an order and receiving the cash. That is the order to cash cycle. Okay, if it is delayed, what will happen? You lose money, working capital. Okay, so the purpose of that is to take every task, every activity in the entire process, and try to classify them into which of them are value added and which of them are non-value added from a customer's viewpoint. Okay, so we start from the beginning, which is the supplier, and end up with the customer. To make the workflow visible, understand actual conditions as is. That's what I described as is. What are they currently doing? We need to describe that, right? And what do you track? You can track, for instance, material flows, right? Or you can track information flows. Okay, later on, if you want, you can track financial flows. But that's the general, that's in fact the definition of supply chain, that you track material flows between the supply chain partners, information flows, and then financial. Okay, this will allow you to have a systems map of what you're trying to track, and then where the problems are. Okay, and these problems are called wastes. Okay, and so to do this, I wanted to show you one more slide which will help you in this one. This is all the theory. You can look at these examples which I'll put on the Google Drive for you. It gives you the before, it gives you a context of actual examples of before and after. But I wanted to show you this is all about process mapping, what you can do with process mapping. By the way, in some companies, they put it on the wall of the production floor, you know. So the process map is put through sticky notes on the wall. So the current yield, if it is a production process, yield, batch size, distance traveled, okay. So kinds of what you want to track in the process information. So once how to draw the the current state map, whether you're going to put it within one company or extend it to the customer and the supplier, right? And you want to have like a systems view, which means everything on one page of. So the lead time of the entire process is captured below. Okay. So what we are doing is we're first finding out the entities involved in the this is the company, 2 customers. Then you're capturing demand data, you're capturing inventory data, right? And here you're capturing within each of the work centers the characteristics that you want to track, like the staffing will be the box which says people. CT is the cycle time, you want that to be low, right? And changeover time, you want that also to be low. uptime should be as high as possible. Okay. Now, this is not a must, but if you do this according to this nomenclature, then you're doing true value stream mapping, because they've all done the research on how best to capture the process. Okay. I also want to show you the environmental version of this. So once you can track these things for traditional processes, same example with two suppliers, the company in between, and two customers, and we took traditional measures, right? We had inventory, we had demand data, we had staffing, we had change over time. Enters where there is hazardous waste which is being gathered. So there's 5 pounds of hazardous waste in this. Okay, so if you want to look, when I said that value before and after is a must part of your project, this gives you an idea of a template as to what to do. Okay, entities involved, the details of entities involved or functions involved, right? Then demand data, inventory data, and then things at the activity ones, which is cycle time, changeover time, uptime, how idle this workstation is, and so on. To that you layer on environmental metrics, right? Water usage, energy usage. This could be energy usage too over there. If you track what is going on actually, then you can come up with ideas to improve the process. Does this give you some help on what to do? Does it give you help? Okay, carry on your discussion. I wanted to show you these two. Can it be reusable? Can you buy it in bulk? Okay, and this is probably going to be pertinent to many of the settings you study, whether you're going to study agriculture or any other context. The use of highly toxic chemicals. Okay, that can be inventory. Why are these chemicals used? Are they the only option? And can you replace this with less harmful chemicals? Okay, if you cannot, then at least reduce the amount that you use. Can we reduce evaporation? Okay, then material waste, scrap, spoilage, overspray, and so on. Can that yield be improved? Is there any volatile organic compounds which are there? Can you track emissions? Okay. Are there alternate? This is also interesting because you don't tend to think about it. Are there alternative methods to clean equipment? Because you may be using harmful chemicals. The equipment gets clean, but everybody around them die. so you don't want to use too many harmful chemicals, right? And can transport and all that. This is a typical lean thing. Can transport movement and all that be minimized? Sustainability thing. If you take rubber, the rubber production is very polluted and it uses a lot of energy, but the side effects of emanating pollutants, and you can track these chemicals. What are the pollutants? What are the harmful effects of that? Ammonia, acidic effluent, nitrogen deposits, suspended solids, and odorous sulfate. So the trick is, how do you measure these things? Right? We know they are present. Unless you have, like you're carrying around an instrument to measure that, right? The issue is the company actually tracking this. Okay, wastewater, right? And this is also going to be difficult. How, to the extent to which the wastewater pollutes the groundwater. Okay, this is where you remember I told you, if hard data is hard to get, you take the qualitative process. You just find out what are they doing. So you say the current as-is process is obviously harmful to the environment. So how do I change that and make it less harmful, right? And this one also, remember, I mean, if it affects marine life, it's so difficult to track, right? We know, I mean, unless you see dead fish around there, you don't know what is happening, okay? But we know that it has a side effect over there. Now, this is something probably do in the facility. There is also the health and safety issues, microscopic particles creating smog, your lungs, right? All of those things, high rates of respiratory cancers and skin diseases, and so the improvements could, reduce the release of the pollutants or the toxic water. Many of the things we don't think about, like packaging, plastic packaging and all, have very harmful health effects too. Some known, some unknown. So when I said packaging, maybe you could improve the packaging. You could improve the packaging to have biodegradable packaging, right? For in shopping examples, instead of plastic bags, historically we used to take cloth bags to go shopping. Now everything has become plastic bags, right? So start to think of some of these creative ideas on what you can do to improve a process before and after in terms of recommendation, right? So as you start evolving, I'm sure you're going to get better and in a more. Right? I was trying to look for some CSR cases. If I get some CSR cases, I'll put it on Google. Okay, all right. So continue with it.